The Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the pardoned January 6th insurrectionists were, according to Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, going to gather outside the Capitol in order to show that they are going back. An apparent attempt to maybe intimidate us? Well, as it turns out, it's Enrique Tarrio who went back to jail, that is. My name is Dina Doll with the MeidasTouch Network. Let's break this down. So the Capitol police officers were able to do what I'm sure they wanted to do all those years ago: arrest him. Evidently, this man, Enrique Tarrio, who thinks he's so tough, couldn't handle a female counter-protester in his face. So he decides to assault her arm and her phone, and Capitol Police quickly handcuffed and arrested him because the protester said, yes, she plans on filing charges. Now, this made the rest of them evidently outraged about the fact that he dared get arrested. And they said that this just goes to show why their campaign to sue the Department of Justice based on the fact that their charges on January 6th should go forward. Now, they want to sue the Department of Justice for $150 million. Now, take note that if the Department of Justice loses that case, that means all of us taxpayers, even those in red states and even those who voted for Trump, will have to pay out that $150 million. But we shouldn't be too worried about that because although the Department of Justice, if this moves forward, will definitely have to use up precious resources to defend this outrageous claim rather than go after the real criminals, this claim has really no merit. The fact is, not only were they charged, but they were convicted, most of them, if they hadn't yet proceeded to trial, but for those that had proceeded to trial, were convicted by juries of their peer. They were afforded every constitutional right that every defendant has in this country. So this is clearly a meritless claim, and they don't have such great luck with lawsuits. If you remember the outcome of the latest lawsuit, they vandalized the Metropolitan African Methodist Church in Washington, D.C. back in December of 2020, pulling down the Black Lives Matter banner, and they lost that and now lost the rights. The Proud Boys' names are completely owned by that church. If you notice, I didn't see Enrique Tarrio wear any signage or the name of the Proud Boys in those photographs of him being arrested because he cannot. He has to get permission from using that name in any way, shape, or form from the church. So Proud Boys have very bad success in court. They like to think of these things a lot like their hero Trump, I think, which is it matters what I say and not what the law is. But the problem with these January 6 people is they don't have near the amount of power as Trump. And so they are going to see that how strong the law actually is against them. Enrique Tarrio, with his recent criminal activity, is not the only January 6th defendant that's making it awkward for Trump and his pardons. The Department of Justice had to reverse course and grant a pardon to January 6th defendants who had violently assaulted Capitol police officers because at the time of their arrest, for the January 6th crime, they found guns in their possession. And so somehow this was connected enough to January 6th that they've requested and now received a pardon for these gun charges. But the reason why they had those guns and were able to be charged separately for those gun charges was because they were engaging in criminal activity. As it turns out, a lot of the people that committed the crime of January 6th were already criminals. Here's one example. Elias Castanis was just pardoned by Trump. He was a January 6th defendant, and when they went into his home, they found 4 guns, cocaine, and testosterone. He had been using and selling the cocaine and testosterone, and so you cannot have a firearm if you are an unlawful user of a controlled substance. So he was charged for that crime. It actually sounds a lot similar to the crime that Hunter Biden was charged with in their fishing expedition. Never mind the fact that Hunter Biden had the gun for, I think, about a day, and it's unclear of whether or not he actually was using at that particular time. Regardless, Republicans gave Joe Biden a huge headache for pardoning his son. Here, there was crickets for the fact that this man had not only committed the crime of January 6th, but had been using and selling testosterone and cocaine and had 4 guns, and Trump just pardoned him. Trump also just gave a new pardon to Daniel Ball. On January 6, he detonated an explosive device on 25 Capitol police officers and violently shoved him. When they went to his home to arrest him, they found a gun and ammunition, despite the fact he could not have those in his home, and so he was arrested on that gun charge, and this is the gun charge that Trump just pardoned him. He was not allowed to have that gun charge because he had a criminal record that included domestic violence battery by strangulation, battery on law enforcement officer. This man who had been convicted for domestic violence, that's why he couldn't own a gun, and that's the person Trump just pardoned.
You heard about senolytics yet? It's a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're being called the biggest discovery of our time for promoting healthy aging and enhancing your physical prime. So my life goals in my career and beyond require productivity, as you can imagine. But let's be honest, the aging process is not our friend. And when it comes to having the energy that I need to do all the things that I'm doing and productivity, I use Qualia Senolytics. So if someone would have told me that there was a science-backed ingredient that could help me feel 15 years younger in a matter of months, I wouldn't have believed it. But then I tried Qualia Senolytic. And now as we age, those zombie cells, they're called, or senescent cells that our body accumulates, they're sort of worthless, and they accumulate and cause aging, and they're sort of old, worn out cells, and they cause these symptoms of aging like aches and discomfort, slow workout recoveries, sluggish mental and physical energy. And it's like this weird, middle-aged feeling, whatever you want to call it. So it's almost like pruning a tree, the dead leaves off a plant. Qualia Senolytic removes those worn out cells, those senescent cells, to allow for the rest of your cells to thrive in your body. And you just have to do it 2 days a month. The first time I read that, I thought, is that a typo? But it's really just 2 days a month. So this formula is non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, and the ingredients are meant to complement one another, factoring in the combined effect of all the ingredients together. There's a 100-day money-back guarantee. It's clinically tested 2-day rejuvenation regimen, and it might hold the key to unlocking your cellular health and revitalizing aging tissues throughout your body. And I really highly recommend that you give it a try. Since I started using Qualia Senolytic, I've had higher energy levels. I feel much younger, and I feel much more productive, enthusiastic, and my brain just feels more sharp, and I have less aches and pains. So resist aging at the cellular level like I do. Try Qualia Senolytic. Go to qualialife.com/mistrial for up to 50% off, and use code mistrial at checkout for an additional 15% off. For your convenience, Qualia Senolytic is also available at select GNC locations near you. That's QUALIA life.com/mistrial for an extra 15% off. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode.
This is the kind of thing that, with all the noise and all the distraction, Trump can get away with. But if we keep talking about it and people keep asking their congresspeople when they show up in those town halls why it's okay for Trump to have pardoned a man who wasn't allowed to own a gun because he had strangled his wife, why would he pardon him for having that gun? So perhaps at the next town hall, somebody can ask a Republican congressperson who believes evidently in law enforcement why Trump was so willing to pardon somebody who was convicted of domestic violence. Take a look at some recent town halls where they confront these Republican congresspeople over what Trump is doing.
Tyranny is rising in the White House, and a man has declared himself our king. So I would like to know, rather, the people would like to know what you, congressmen, and your fellow congressmen are going to do to rein in the megalomaniac in the White House.
The voices of people at town halls in the streets, the lawsuits from the state attorney generals all show that Trump, as much as he wants to believe he has absolute power, he does not. The other people that need to know that are the CPAC group. It's called the Third Term Project, and they distributed Trump 2028 stickers. Now, this is something very far-fetched. The Supreme Court, I don't think, is going to side with them. The Constitution is very clear, and as much as they believe in this executive power being broad, not only because of what they did with the Trump immunity decision, but the executive unitary theory that most of the Federalist judges, which is a majority of the court, believe in. They believe that executives should have perhaps more expanded powers than we typically have had and been okay with in modern times. It still doesn't mean that they're willing to outright change the language of the Constitution when it comes to birthright citizenship and when it comes to the terms of the presidency. So on the one hand, we can see this as a distraction. That and his age makes 2028 Trump very unlikely. But at the same time, we can use it as a rallying cry to get people to come out and vote in the midterms, to get people to come out and vote in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race that's coming soon, the one in which Elon Musk's super PAC plans on donating $1 million to help change the outcome of that Wisconsin Supreme Court. So the ways to counter that is to stay engaged, to stay knowledgeable, to vote where we can, to show up at town halls where we can, to both understand what they're saying and also to put it into a perspective. But at least for today, the Proud Boys' Enrique Tarrio got an arrest, which he didn't expect and certainly didn't want as part of his PR announcement, which goes to show that as much as him and Trump, the Oath Keepers, want to believe they're above the law, they're really not.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA Union made.